One of my sayings is just, I'm not interested in being important, but I'm very interested in doing what's important. Ironically, what happens is if you just try to do what's important, disregarding trying to make yourself important, you become important by default because everybody trusts you and because you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're trying to do what's important, that means you're studying and you're looking into what matters. What am I doing today that matters 1,000 years from now?
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Defender, for host and CEO, and I'm so glad that you are here. It is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest each and every single week that helps you build that mindset and add some tools to that mental toughness toolbox so that you can live the abundant life. If you are new to the show, I do want to make sure you know about the exclusive offer we have for podcast listeners. The offer is 6 weeks of free training on Mountain Tough Plus. All you need to do is go to MTNTOUGH.com, enter the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's capital MTNPOD. Enter that code. It's going to get you started for 6 weeks for free on Mountain Tough. That's the best way to get going, and that'll include all your mental, physical, nutritional, spiritual programming. One subscription unlocks everything that we offer. Shifting gears now to today's guest. On the show today, we have founder and owner Matt McPherson of Mathews Archery. We've been shooting Mathews bows here at Mountain Tough for a long time. I've been following Matt's journey as an entrepreneur, as an owner, and how he's built a faith-based company that handles the transparent communication of faith, so connected with his brand in a very world-class way. A phenomenal, phenomenal product, phenomenal business, a phenomenal man. So please stand by for my conversation with Matt McPherson. Glad you were able to join. I know that we've been working on this one for a while with you, and I know that our whole team has been involved with Mathews Archery for a long time, as most of our team is archery hunters, and as being based in Bozeman, we're able to do a lot of different elk hunts and bear hunts and deer hunts, and so been familiar with you guys for a long time and familiar with your story. So glad we could make this happen.
Great.
Are you at the home office today?
Yeah, this is my office here.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got guitars on that wall and I got bows on this wall. So yeah.
You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I heard you on a different podcast a couple of years ago, and I thought it was a really fascinating story around your faith, especially, and how you got the idea for some products you were building for Mathews Archery. And, the conversation that I heard was related to getting a vision from the Lord related to a design you could build. Could you kind of take us back to that moment?
I was brought up in a family of definitely faith being our most important thing that we were interested in. And my dad was a pastor when I was young, and I just knew that I wanted to be in ministry, somehow involved in ministry. And so throughout time, as I was growing up in the 70s, especially when I was a teenager, I turned 13 in 1970. So the 1970s was my most formative part of my life, because I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing in life. And I was most interested in doing what God had his hand, what his opinion of my life should be. I knew that likely the God of the universe probably knew better how to direct me to being a little bit more maximum than myself, which had no understanding of the future. So in the late 70s, this is before I was married, I just said to God, I said, what do you want from me? I want to know what you want from me, because I'm most interested in what you're thinking. And I literally heard him say to me, he says, I'm going to prosper you in business. So you can be self-sufficient in ministry, to be able to do ministry stuff. But you would be able to provide that. I would be able to provide the money and maybe ideas on how to be more effective for Christ. Which made me very excited because that was my heart. That was my heart. I love people. I'm actually a shy person, but I love people, and I have a heart for people. And so my desire was to find out what that meant. That's all he gave me at that time. But in the early 80s, I was married in 1980. I was just minding my own business in my house. And because that was the late 70s. In the early 80s, I was I'm not sure what I was doing. I was just walking around in my house doing something. And I heard him speak to me again. And he said, I know every answer to every problem. I know every answer to every problem in the world. I'm like,
Crazy.
well, and it just, I mean, like the hair in the back of my neck stood up because I'm like, whoa, it's clearly, and I had heard God's voice a few times in my life. So I knew when it was him speaking. And I just very reverently just said, well, that's because you're God, And he said, if you'd only ask me, I'd give you those answers. If men would only ask me, in other words, mankind, not just men, but men, women, mankind would ask me. In other words, if for the right reason we were asking, in sincerity, God would give those answers. If it was something that would help change the world and point him to God, that he would help. And so I got on my knees right there and I said, God, I'm asking you to, I built bows for myself, archery bows, compound bows. I built my first compound bow in 1970 approximately. So yeah, it's a long time. That's a long time ago.
That's a long time.
And yeah, I was 13, and but I was very mechanically minded, and I understood the first ones I saw, I thought, well, I get how that works. And so I started building them, and but hadn't built them for sale, or for anybody, but I just built for myself. So in the early 80s, when he said that, I got on my knees and said, God, I know that you said you were going to prosper me in business, and I sense that one of those things will be me making archery bows. I really feel that that's a direction that I need to be taking. And so you just challenged me, and I'm asking you for wisdom. Give me the best ideas for making compound bows. And you know what I'll do with that? I will use that to help change the world for you. And I know that in and of myself, I can do nothing, but with Christ, I can do all things. And that was exciting to me. And so a couple weeks later, I don't remember exactly how long, but it was like a couple weeks later, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I was literally having a vision of a new bow concept. So this would be right around 1983. And I just sat up in bed and I woke my wife up in the middle, just standing up in bed. And I'm staring at this drawing in front of my face. And it looked like literally a sheet of paper hanging in front of my face.
Wow.
With a concept that I'd never thought about before.
Wow.
And my wife says, what are you doing? I said, honey, I'm having a vision. And I know it's from God. So I got to get up and I got to draw this down, And so I drew it down and I went back to bed and woke up in the morning, and sure enough, here's this concept I'd never thought of. And I'd built compound bows, like I said, but I never thought of this particular angle. Now it was very crude, but the concept was 100%. It was like, oh, I think he did it crudely just so it was just easy to understand.
Yeah.
It was just the simple basics was there. I understood the mechanics of it instantly. And I used that then to start McPherson Archery in 85. And I sold out of McPherson Archery in 89. And then I started Mathews Archery, where everything really kind of gelled and came together in a powerful way. In 1992, I started Mathews Archery. And we literally just kind of went to the moon. It was unbelievable. And
Yeah.
I kept praying for wisdom. God kept giving me these ideas and concepts.
You train hard, you shoot often, and when the moment comes, you need to be ready. No excuses. That's why I trust Ammo Squared, because preparation isn't just a mindset, it's a way of life. The world is ever changing, and the need to be prepared has never been more important, no matter who's in the White House. The best time to stock up was yesterday. The second best time is right now, because regretting that you didn't prepare, that's a bad idea. Ammo Squared is America's ammunition reserve, giving you a smarter way to stay stocked. With over 70 calibers to choose from, you set your monthly budget, build your reserve, and forget about ammo shortages ever again. Set it and forget it. Your ammo is stored in a secure, climate-controlled facility until you need it. When it's time, just click and it's on the way. No last-minute scrambling, just reliable, on-demand ammo, always ready. And right now, you can get 75 rounds of 9mm completely free when you sign up. It's the perfect way to build your reserve and keep your training ammo stocked. No membership, no hidden fees. Visit the Ammo Squared link in the podcast description today. Your readiness is their mission.
Usually the concepts and ideas aren't as divine as just like waking up with a vision, but they're very obviously inspired because I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden it just pops in my head. And it's like maybe even when I wasn't even thinking about anything of that particular nature. So it's almost like you see a photo of something and like, oh, I know that. So a lot of the designs were just like they would just pop in my head. And so I knew that it was divinely inspired. And so, we ended up making Inc. 500 fastest growing companies. We were top 100 in 1998, the fastest growing privately held companies in America. 1999, we were top 500. And it was just a testament to the reality of that what we were given to us was something that was quite divine.
Wow.
And at the same time, I believe God gives all of us a certain amount of direction, and if we don't seize on it, we lose it. And I was ready to seize on it, and when I got the ideas, I really jumped on it, and I felt God behind it, and I just prayed for wisdom on so many areas. But anyway, that's kind of how things started out.
Yeah. And so that's been almost, 35, 40 years since
That'd be 33 years ago.
Okay. Since
that I started Mathews. Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
are there other moments throughout your life where you've had other visions that powerful?
I've heard his voice that were just very powerful. I remember one time that I was at a church and there was a missionary there, and he was needing funds for some of the work he was doing. And he didn't say how much or anything. I mean, but he was there not just raising funds, but also giving a message. And I heard God's voice, and he said, "I want you to write a check for it was literally like $4,750. I thought, that's funny. Why not round it up?"
Yeah.
And I said to God, I said, "Did you just say?" I'm in my head. I'm going, "Did you just say $4,750?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Can I just round it up to 5,000? It's going to look a little weird, 4,750." And I heard him say, "Absolutely not." I said, "Okay."
Man.
So I wrote a check out for I think it was $4,750. And I came up to him after the service and I just said, this is going to sound weird, but I felt like God spoke to me a very specific amount of money to write a check for. And I had to be faithful. So I wrote it out and here it is. I hope it's a blessing to you. And he opened it up and he started crying immediately, just started bawling. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "That is the exact amount that my wife and I got on our knees this morning and prayed that we needed to fulfill,
Oh man.
our needs." And I thought to myself, had I rounded it up to 5,000, he would have been blessed, but not as blessed.
Yeah. It
Because
would have
he
been the
asked
same.
for that amount. And I was more blessed because I said, "I know that's you, God. I know you just said that amount, so I'm going to just be faithful." So it blessed me. And it also, when the Bible talks about it being a still, small voice, just a very still, small voice, but you hear it clearly. You do hear it clearly. And you get good at knowing when it's God and when it's not. And when things like that happen, of course, it just helps to support your connection with God of being able to. I mean, I remember hearing God one day say, "I'm always talking. You're just not always listening."
Yeah.
And I thought, oh,
Yeah. And
Lord, I don't want to miss anything. I really don't want to miss anything you have for me, because I believe what he'll do is if he's asking you to do something you're not listening, you know what he does? He just passes you by.
Yeah.
I don't want to be passed by, you know? In
We've,
fact, there was a moment in time where I actually I heard him say, produce this documentary. It was the late 90s. And I was like, really? Okay. Okay. So I helped produce this documentary it was about the Bible code and all this kind of stuff. And, um, and I'm very mathematical. And I had read this book because I had felt, well, I was in an airport, frankly, and I heard him say, buy that book. I'm like, really? It's written by an atheist. And I'm like, why would I want to know what it is? He says, buy the book. So I bought the book and I realized, oh, it's about the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and that in the original Hebrew, that it appears to be mathematically that all of life is encoded through equidistant letter sequencing.
man,
And I was like, oh, I heard him say, produce the documentary. So I did. We ended up winning awards for it. And I remember on the way to work a couple of times, well, a few times, it was actually more than a couple of times, I just said, God, why did you use me? I'm a bow maker. I'm a guitar maker.
yeah,
Why did you use me? Because I suspected why, but I was asking. And I wouldn't hear anything. And then one day I said it again. I said, God, why did you use me to produce that? I can't believe that I was your first choice. And he said, you weren't. And I was like, so you had asked somebody else and they weren't listening?
that's powerful.
And I thought, I was like, so how many things have I missed? I want
Yeah.
to, really seriously, I'm sorry. Anything that I have missed before that maybe was given to someone else, I apologize. God, I don't really want to miss anything.
That's
I don't want to miss
powerful.
anything that you have for me. And in fact, give me something else that somebody else is not paying attention. If my shoulders are broad enough, and just give me the strength and the wisdom to be able to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about that actually at Mountain Tough. And I think especially I've been talking about it a little bit as there's probably 2 categories. There's the unsaved and the saved. And then when you get into the saved, you still run into a lot of conversations of individuals that are hearing the voice of God. They're hearing whispers from God. They're seeing visions. They're getting confirmation,
oh yeah,
but then they're not being obedient on those callings. And so we've been unpacking that a little bit and
yeah,
what's around that disobedience. And it seems to be a tremendous amount of fear. I'd say fear is
yeah.
a bucket that we've
I
been
agree.
fear of it seems to be what other people will think, or a lot of fear around financial security. If I do this, am I going to lose my house? If I do this, am I going to lose my job?
Yeah.
What about the mortgage payment? What about the car payment? But have you found ways to help individuals overcome that?
I've had that discussion with people. I believe when we're born, God has an A plan, right? None of us are on the A plan
Mm,
anymore. We were when we were first born. God had an A plan laid out that would have been just amazing, right? Um, well, when we miss the A plan, He's got a B plan.
mm,
When we miss the B plan, He's got a C plan. But I've told people over and over again, but understand the C plan is never as good as the B plan.
mm.
And the B plan is never as good as the A plan. Some of us are on the triple Z plan.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Been through the alphabet 3 times. And yes, the plan at the moment although all, the other ones you've missed, they're gone. But the plan that God has at the moment is still the best plan from this point out. So don't miss anything more. Don't miss any more that God has, because God, there's people that I've seen who even economically and financially, it's pretty tough for them, but they have joy
Yeah, lots of joy.
because they're on the B or C plan. They're not on the Z plan. And they have grabbed a hold of the joy of the Lord. The Bible talks about a peace that passes understanding. That means when you're in a spot when maybe there's no logical reason to have peace, but you do, that's a God-given peace. So you don't want to miss God's plan for your life. And wherever you're at today, you can't keep commiserating about the plans you've missed, or you may miss the plan you're on.
Hmm.
Again, the plan today is the best plan God's got for you, and try to stay hooked up to that plan as much as possible and not miss anything.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes, and so we paired two together in the lab, and that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages, and I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Use promo code TOUGH for a free Turtlebox hat with the purchase of a Gen 2 speaker. The hat must be added to your cart before entering the promo code TOUGH, TOUGH. You know, even just how we started the conversation related to that fear of provision, when you look back at your life, you being obedient to those whispers, those voices has been such a blessing to you, and you taking action on those has been such a blessing. And it's always easier to see in reverse. In hindsight, you can see it, but in the present moment, looking forward, you can't see it. But you have to have faith that the same thing's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a saying when I was a kid: be faithful with little things and you'll be trusted with much. And so I would say that over and over again. I mean, I remember back in junior high and high school, I had to work in my dad's body shop. My brother Randy and I had to work in my dad's body shop for free to help put food on the table, just to kind of keep from losing the house. And man, it seems to me it was like we were putting in probably 50, 60-hour weeks in the body shop and going to school. I mean, it was a lot of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I mean, I jumped up on the pull-up bar one day and I set the school pull-up record. I mean, so I was naturally athletic, and the gym teachers and the coaches kind of always wanted to be a part of different things. And I just said, I got to work. And I remember thinking, what, I could get all, down in the mouth about the fact that I got to work when all these other kids get to, have fun. But God, I'm just saying, hey, I'm going to prove to myself to be faithful in little things. And I'm just asking you, if I can be proven to be faithful in little things, would you trust me with much?
I love that. Yeah. And has it helped you to settle into really understanding that we are in a pretty savage war between good and evil, and we are placed into this savage war between good and evil, and it is our job, to fight against that, to bring the kingdom in. And we're placed on this earth at this time for those reasons, and to kind of reside in that instead of getting caught up in the busyness of life, the busyness of media, the distractions, the hobbies, which, there's good in some of those, but does it help you really focus on the big picture?
I think one of the advantages I have is I'm wired to be an engineer, and as an engineer, I'm always looking at cause and effect. If I do this, what happens? And I'm good with numbers, and one number that sticks in my mind is almost nobody makes it to 100. So we have a very finite amount of time that we're going to be on this earth. And just the other day, I looked up how many days on earth I had been alive. And right now it'd be right around 24,800 and about 25, something like that. 24,800 some days.
Mhm.
I'm like, what have I done? You know, I hope I've been faithful. I don't really, because I'm 67 and I'm going to be 68 here soon. And the last thing is that I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking, man, I kind of live for myself.
Mm.
And time is so quick. I can't even explain to you how quickly it's gone by. I don't know how I got to be 67 this fast. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And at the same time, um, there was a saying I heard from a song back in the early 70s that said, only one life, so soon it will pass. Only what's done for Christ will last. And I understand it was also a poem years ago. And it really stuck with me. And I thought to myself, that's it. It's important to know what's important.
Yeah.
And it's important to focus on what's important.
Mm.
So I came up with a saying. One of my sayings is just, I'm not interested in being important, but I'm very interested in doing what's important. Ironically, what happens is if you just try to do what's important, disregarding trying to make yourself important, you become important by default because everybody trusts you and because you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. And if you're trying to do what's important, that means you're studying and you're looking into what matters. And so for me, the thing that matters is start with what am I doing today that matters 1,000 years from now?
Yeah.
That's a good thing that everybody should ask themselves.
Generational.
Because there's generations for the future, and also there's eternity we're looking at. What am I doing that makes an impact on eternity? If all I do is make something that, like a bow, honestly, there's no eternal impact from that,
Mm-hmm.
other than the monetary effect that it's allowed us to be able to be so involved in ministry around the world. I mean, we literally are touching millions of lives around the world,
Yeah.
millions.
Through that impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my mentors has worked with me a lot around always chasing impact, and that income will follow. And, a lot of mistakes are made when you chase income looking for impact. But if you're always focused on that impact and you're doing it in a real meaningful way and become good at that lane, then the income does follow. And it's not easy at first. You might have to go through some really hard years. And that's how it's been for Mountain Tough is I started Mountain Tough with 3 guys in the park behind my house. And we've talked about that a lot on the podcast where, it was no equipment. My wife and I had just sold everything that we owned to go work in Uganda. So
Awesome.
we literally had nothing when we started this, but those 3 guys in the park just focused on the impact we could make in them has led to where we are 9 years later. And it's 100% accurate with what you said. No matter what we have had, blessing-wise, resource-wise, financial-wise, in those years, it's been the most joyful years we've ever had because you do have that joy of the Lord knowing that you're doing something that He asked you to do. And so the finances have really never mattered once we made that pivot because you're really living off that joy. And it's been phenomenal.
It's one thing to have to go clean a barn out with a shovel. I've done that, with my cousins and stuff like that. It's another thing if Jesus comes into the room and hands you a shovel and you and him walk to the barn and you both shovel.
Man,
that's different.
Yeah. And He's right there with you.
Yeah. And so when you're doing things that matter eternally and you know that He's right alongside of you shoveling.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be something enjoyable, but that's where the peace that passes understanding comes in.
One of the keys to maximizing your workout is to make sure that you're eating clean and putting the right fuel in your body. Mountain Tough has preached this since the beginning. You're also seeing a shift right now nationally where we're calling out hidden additives, hidden substances in our food. As a hunter, when you process your own meat, you control everything. No additives, no shortcuts. no compromises. Just clean fuel built for peak performance. My family has been processing our own wild game for years using field-tested, hardcore processing equipment from the team over at Meat. Meat offers world-class grinders, stuffers, slicers, everything you need to turn your wild game into clean, high-octane fuel. No gimmicks, just high-quality tools that get the job done, and they're backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Take control of your life. Take control of your health. Click the link in the podcast description below to claim your special offer from Meat and start fueling the right way today. Well, I wanted to pivot for a second and get into the company Mathews and Mathews Bows, Mathews Archery, because from my perspective, in the same industry, in the hunting industry, and then even outside of that, when we were building Mountain Tough, I always wanted faith to be a integral part of our organization. And what I ran into is when you look for role models, when you look for mentors, when you look for just models you can form your company off of, there really was not many in the entire world that we would look at as models of having a company that was a Christian company and was transparent about it. It was very normal for there to be ministries and then therefore to be Christian business owners, but you didn't know that unless you knew them personally.
Yeah.
So, for 9 years, Mathews has been the example that I cite and we cite over and over again of, look at these guys, they have done it. They have integrated faith into their brand, but they've done it in a very well done manner where it's, and so I wanted to just hear from you, how you did that, how you thought about it, because I do believe, there's not many examples of folks that have done that as well as you have.
Again, it goes back to I felt early on in my life, a calling on my life. I tear up real easy, so I need to blow my nose. But again, being an engineer, I think out long term. And I remember thinking how awful to be separated from God for eternity. Those who don't make it. And because I have this big imagination, I was horrified by that thought, because the sense I could feel by just for a moment imagining to be eternally lost was just so heavy.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to just do whatever I could to just. I think most people are kind of oblivious to the reality that God is really real, even though they say they're a Christian and they're born again. And I'm not saying they're not a Christian, but I mean, let's just take it, for example, me and you, right? I can tell that you definitely have a very deep sense of God in your personal relationship with him. And of course I do. And yet if I could send me and you, if I could ask God to say, hey, send me and you to hell, literally to hell for 5 minutes. And I don't mean watching a TV screen. I mean, the smells, the sounds, the feeling, the sense of eternally lost for 5 minutes. And then it brought me back, and then sent both of us, brought us back, and then sent both of us to heaven for 5 minutes. I can't honestly say I would live my life the same either.
Yeah, we'd make
the difference
some
would be, I mean, I'm telling you right now, I really, really believe what I believe. I mean, I'm putting my life on the line. I'm putting my everything I do on the line, because I really, really believe. But you come back from that, and now you really, 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 really believe.
Yeah, you've seen both sides.
Yeah, it just, there's just nothing like that personal experience that I just know would change. I don't care who it is out there. They can say that their relationship with Christ is perfect and beautiful. Nobody would be the same if they could actually experience that.
Yeah.
So I really look at the reality is that for sure that being eternally lost and separated from God is such a horrible thing. And my imagination taking it out, I'm thinking to myself, well, God, help me in some way to bring your light to this world. I believe that God can do anything without me. Trust me. He can do anything without any of us. But it's just like I've got children. Now I've got grandchildren, and when they come up alongside me and they're 2.5 or 3 years old, and, when they're little and I'm working on something, frankly, sometimes they're in my way. But I love the fact that they're in my way because they want to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They want to know what Papa's up to, and that I find delight in that. And I believe that God finds delight in us desiring to be involved with his work. And I think if you what I do is I pretty much daily challenge God in a very respectful way. God, don't pass me by. Just every day, I would encourage everybody to say a sincere prayer, don't pass me by, Lord. Don't pass me by. Show me the way. Light the path well. If you have to run, it's one thing to be running in the daylight, full tilt.
Yeah.
But if you've got to run in the night when it's dark, you can't run as fast. You got to be a little careful. And so I just pray, God, make it clear, light the path. I don't want to be walking. I want to be running.
And that sonship, just knowing that like you are a son of the King of the universe and just settling into, he's your father, you're his son. And
he delights for us to want to be involved with what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's powerful. So with the organization, Mathews Archery, the faith component, can you walk us through what that would look like if we worked there? Not from the outside seeing your brand and your marketing, but if we were to work there in the factory or in leadership, how would that feel?
Everybody in the company knows my position and my faith. We share enough with them to give them opportunity. My wife and I wrote a song that if you typed it into the YouTube, you would see thousands of videos of people, little children singing it. It's called The Salvation Poem. And it's a song that has been, we partnered with some of the biggest ministries. And we've gotten word back that it's certified that over 1 billion people know this song. It's called The Salvation Poem.
Wow.
And what it is a sinner's prayer put to a poem, put to music. Well, we've made that pretty clear to everybody in the company. But at the same time, I think it's important not to. You ever go to somebody's house and they got a big dog and the dog wants to slobber all over you,
Yeah.
The dog loves you and everything. It's like, yeah, okay, but please, put your dog away, because it's, slobbering all over me.
Yeah.
We don't want to slobber on people, Jesus, because that's an irritating thing. So it's important, I think, with whatever we do and however we share Christ, that we make it clear in no uncertain terms in a very gentle way, but that our faith is the most important thing. And so that's what you find at our company. Also, our company is very well lit,
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com.
I think it's very clear when you work for our company that you'll find out quite soon that that my faith is the most important thing to me. We try to make a really good environment in the company. All of my buildings are central air, and even all the assembly areas is all central air, and of course heat. And we want people and very well lit. You know, a well lit place doesn't feel like a dungeon. You know, so you want it well lit and comfortable and in a clean environment. And so we work really hard at having a great environment. I've had people come up to me and say, Matt, thank you so much for having air conditioning, because they'd worked at other places that didn't.
Yeah.
And they said, I don't have air conditioning at home. And so I love coming to work, especially in the summer. You know? So
Just finding those ways to love on people.
yeah, to let them know that they matter. Because I mean, obviously cost many thousands of dollars to cool everything, but the reality of it is happy employees make great employees.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when they realize that I do care about them and that I really try to go out of my way to make a difference in their life, they're going to treat the company more like it's their company, which is kind of how I want them to think, you know.
How do you loop the company into the giving back that you're doing? So with financial components coming out of the organization, the different ministries you're giving into, the different community projects you're giving into, are they aware of that? Are they looped in on that? Are they involved in that?
Yeah, they pretty much all know that we're involved in that because we're just putting out so much money for missions and ministries. And right now we're producing a film that's going to be in theaters September 5th of this year.
Yeah, I want to get into
Light
that.
of the World. You know?
I was excited to get into that.
Yeah, and we can get into it more later. But yeah, they know that I'm making money not to buy yachts, and you know, I'm making money to do what I believe. I mean, if I really truly believe there's a separation from God, eternal or a heaven, if I really believe that, I'm just as horrified for you or anybody.
Yeah.
You know, I've shared this with pastors. Sometimes we'll have pastors come here and we'll have a round table and not really a round table, you know, a discussion like with a table and discussing about how we can affect this world for Christ. And I said, you know what, if somebody came running into this room, like right now, if somebody came running in the room and said, Matt, there's a hole that's opened up, a sinkhole that's opened up in the middle I-90 right out here, which is only about a mile away. And it's at the top of the peak of the hill, so they don't see it until it's too late, and they're falling into this deep, deep hole.
Mm.
I wouldn't sit here and go, well, let's just pray about that. I'd
You're,
get up, I'd stop this interview, and I'd run and jump in my vehicle. I'd get there as soon as possible and try to block the traffic,
hmm
and
Stop them.
at the
Yeah.
risk of looking like a fool, because at that point, that's what matters. And so the reality is this: yes, once you're married, I mean, it's always God first, but when you get married, it's your spouse second,
Yeah.
and then it's your children
Yeah.
in that order. And if you put yourself at the bottom of the heap, you'll find that actually you'll find the most joy. You find the
hmm
most satisfaction. When God's number one, your spouse, your children, and others, there's something really, really special about how God has wired us. I believe He's wired us this way, but we just don't. There's two things where our selfish, sinful nature, because of the fall, um, wants to gratify,
Yeah.
and we get into this small world of gratification, which never satisfies, always temporary, and it's long-term um disruptive. So a lot of the employees in my company, they have just seen over the years how we have made moves to really stick our neck out financially. Uh,
hmm
I mean, just tremendous amount. I mean, this film is millions of dollars, but we believe that we have an opportunity, not through just theaters, but after it does a theatrical launch, it's going to go. We'll
Yeah.
get into that if you want to,
Yeah.
but it's just another one of the avenues. We also support 1,000 missionaries. We fully fund 1,000 missionaries. We're their food, clothing, shelter, 365 days a year, and they have children and their wives, and many times it's their parents are living with them too. So it's like the typical household with these missionaries that we're working. They're indigenous missionaries to these countries that we're working with, but it's 1,000 missionaries total. So we're like supporting like 6,000, maybe 7,000 people a year,
Wow.
100% their support. But they're also then those 1,000 missionaries are going out and they're leading people to Christ, to the tune of just that organization. It's over 3.5 million people to Christ. They
Wow.
have documented they lead to Christ. I mean, I couldn't do that if I was a missionary myself.
No. Yeah, that's
And
unreal.
I love missionaries. I love their heart. I love the fact that they were willing to lay down their life, their dreams, well, their secular dreams, to
Yeah.
go do something that seems in so many ways by the world standard as a loss of life. No, it's the most amazing thing. If all you do is just change one life, that's better than 95% of the people in the world,
Yeah.
but so many missionaries do it. But I knew in my case that I could not reach that many people if I was just a single missionary.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wasn't called to do that, but I would have done it if God said, "Hey,
Do it.
go to Africa and eat monkey eyeball soup." I would hate the soup, I'm sure, but I would have gone. You know what I'm saying? But I feel blessed. I feel extremely um, just excited to know that God has worked through me and my wife. And my wife is just unbelievable, man. She's just a godly woman. I've never seen a more praying human being in my life.
Mm.
I mean, Word of God and into prayer just daily. All these years, we'll be married 45 years this June.
Amazing.
And just, I love this woman. And she still says, "Honey, I just need more time with you." I said, "Okay, baby." I mean, 45 years later, the love is just deeper. And I know it's the love of Christ. It's Christ working in us that just keeps drawing us deeper and deeper together. And it's so true. I mean, when you really truly are in a biblical marriage, the two become one.
hmm
It's
Yeah.
so true. It's so exciting to see so many people in my company who also have become believers even since coming to the company, who get it that we are here for a much greater purpose than to just make the best bows in the world. And it's there's many times when things looked really kind of tough for us to be able to hurdle, and all of a sudden gates opened up that even some of my people who weren't necessarily very close to the Lord just said, "Wow."
Wow. How'd that happen?
Only thing I can say is God must have been a part of that, because that was a miracle. So it's just amazing how God has used it, and I know that God again could take it away at any time. So I need to always be forthright. I need to be always in tune.
Yeah.
Never take advantage of anything. Never never assume that God was always going to be blessing it.
Yeah.
I know that I can assume God will always love me because he said he would.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as him giving me favor, I want favor. I
Yeah.
need favor.
Yeah.
And I continually want favor. Yeah. Pray for it.
Well, one more question related to that, and then I do want to get into the film.
Sure.
But everything that you've done over your life and everything that you're doing to multiply it's so beautiful. I mean, the design of your engineering brain, we were created in our mother's womb for reasons and purposes and plans set out before us. And
Yep.
you understanding that and understanding that your engineering calling is a way to generate revenue and jobs that can then multiply the kingdom through the missionaries, like multiplying your spirit is so much greater than you could do by yourself.
Yeah.
But I assume from my experience that you've also been attacked by the enemy. We also know that the enemy, prowls around us 24/7 like a lion looking to seek, kill, and devour. And
100%.
so, it hasn't all been easy. How have you navigated the enemy's attacks, and what helps you with that?
There's just so many stories that could take days on explaining the attacks we've had financially, where it was just really, really in tough spots because we were just biting off huge things.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things, and the thing that is the hardest, is when the enemy attacks our children. We as parents, we are their protector. And 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now, we found out our son, who was 35 at the time, had cancer.
Mm.
I literally spent about 7 months with him, and I was pretty much his caretaker. We went to Florida for 3 months trying to go to get some treatments and that, and then we went to California to try to get treatments. We just chased this thing around, and he just got worse and worse, and finally we lost him.
Mm.
I cannot explain to you how awful it is to lose a child. It's just,
Sorry.
it's something you don't ever get over, obviously. And you just learn to have better tools. It never feels good, never feels right. We were designed to outlive our children, and when you outlive a child, then it becomes, so dark. I can't even explain to you how dark that was. And yet at the same time, I knew it wasn't a surprise to God. I knew that he could have healed him at any time. I don't understand why God heals some and doesn't heal others, but the reality of it is this: I'm not God, and I don't know everything he knows. I do know that my son was very, very much saved, and that I will see him again.
Yeah,
And,
you'll see him again.
I will say that's the worst thing I've ever gone through, and it's been 4 years now, and I'm crying right now. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't cry, really. I don't think ever. It's that painful. And of course, just there's all other kid things, dealing with stuff that has been, tough, but we've gotten through it. I think the bottom line is this: God has not promised that we wouldn't have a tough life, but he has promised that he would be there with us.
Yeah. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app.
But there was a really super tough time I went through in 2012 and 2013 where I had really gotten sick, super sick. And I got so sick, I couldn't feel God for the first time in my life. I mean, that was so frightening because I'd always felt God. All my life, I'd felt God's presence. I felt him and I couldn't feel him. I felt like a dead man walking.
Wow.
And I got through that through a lot of prayer and different people helping in that. And I'm great today. But I remember when I got through that, I finally said, God, I said, help me with one thing. I felt like you abandoned me. I know you didn't. My head tells me you didn't because your word says, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a promise. But I said, help me understand that because I honestly couldn't feel you. I felt alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him speak again. This is one of those times. He said, "Oh, okay." He talks just like somebody talking to me. I mean, the way he speaks to me is just like you talk.
Yeah.
He says, "Well," he says, "First of all, he says, I can't leave you. I'm omnipresent. I'm everywhere all at once. So it's impossible for me to leave you." And I went, "Oh, that's right. I hadn't processed that connection.
Yeah.
It's impossible for you to leave me because you are everywhere all at once."
Yeah.
And he said, and I also said, "I will never forsake you." He said, "Now that's a choice I could make. I could forsake you, but I made a promise I wouldn't, and I don't break promises."
Wow.
And I just went, "Oh,
Yeah.
I will never leave you or forsake you." And I thought to myself from that point on, God, I knew you hadn't. I didn't know that, but that helps me if I ever was to go through a dark time like that again.
He's
Helps
there.
me to just process the fact that you're omnipresent,
Yeah.
and of course I knew that, but it's just like I hadn't put those two connections together. It's impossible for him to leave you.
Mm-hmm.
He's always there,
Always there.
always there.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah. So there's just so many things over the years that where all of a sudden I just knew that there had to be a divine miracle. A friend called me up one day and he said, "Hey, God spoke to me and he said that you're going to be making this much money this year." I was like, "Oh, that's nice." I said, "I pretty much know how much we're going to make after like the first couple months of the year, just because there's a pattern it follows."
Yeah.
And I said, "We're not anywhere near that pattern." He says, "Well, I'm just telling you what God told me." I said, "That's great." I said, "If it happens, I'm not going to lead my life by somebody else's prophecy, but I also file those. So when it happens, then I know that, you weren't a false prophet." But, then literally after that prayer, all of a sudden the phone started ringing off the hook. And I mean, it was just like,
What?
it went crazy.
Yeah.
And after about 8 weeks of that, I called him back. I said, "Buddy, it looks like we're going to top what you said actually at this point." And so it was really one of those times again. It was just like, man, God, you're so cool. You are
Yeah.
so awesome.
So awesome. Well, I know we only have a few minutes left, and I do want to close with hearing about your film because that did blow my mind. I was thinking about you, and there's the bow business, there's the guitar business, and when I got the update, I was like, how is Matt producing a film?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I remember I told you in the late 90s, I heard God say produce a documentary, and then I got involved in different people and did produce some documentaries and films over the years just because it presented itself. And again, I didn't want to miss an opportunity where God was saying do it because somebody else wasn't listening. I didn't want to miss that opportunity, so I took it on. So I had some experience at that point. But if you think about it, as an engineer and a producer of bows, I'm a producer. I
Yeah.
know how to make things. I
Yeah.
know how to, it doesn't matter if it's a film or whatever. In the late 90s, again, I heard him say, you're going to produce a film about Jesus someday. I'm like, cool. Just make it clear when. In the meantime, I'm making bows and guitars, and documentaries. And all of a sudden, about 3.5 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago now, it just presented itself. And I said, it's time, I
Mhm.
guess. And I just said, so I was speaking to the director and the producers and that, and I just said, I really want it to be 2D animated. I want this to be something that the whole family's going to go to, and little kids can absorb this too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 2D animated. Plus, 2D animation lasts way longer than CGI. CGI has a tendency to kind of, because it's computer generated, it starts looking old pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it just kind of becomes, in a lot of ways, overwhelming. Just so much information from CGI, where 2D animated is very much a form of art. It's like every one of the frames you could look at and frame it and put it on your wall because it looks like art.
That's cool.
And so we knew that, I knew that like a 2D animation is probably very possibly got a 30-year, 40-year, maybe even 50-year
Shelf life.
run.
Yeah.
So let's produce something that can be used over and over again. So we decided to set out, and it's called Light of the World. It's going to be in theaters September 5th of this year, 2025. And it's I've got over $20 million in it. I mean, so I'm putting everything on the line.
Yeah.
Every time I do stuff like this, my accountants and my bankers look at me like, and but God makes it happen. God makes it happen, and He's pulled
That's
it together.
incredible.
And we believe that we'll be able to play this to over 1 billion people. And this is how. We're going to do a theatrical launch. That's why it's going to be in theaters September 5th. And we're hoping that possibly that if it does good enough, that we might win awards. We're going to actually put in for some awards. If we can win some awards, it may open more doors around the world to be able to be played in more countries. We're going to try to also have it translated into as many languages as possible.
Yeah.
To be used by missions. So as soon as it does the theatrical launch, then it's going to be given away for free. That was my whole goal, is to make this expensive, yes, but powerful tool that can be used by ministries. Because at the end of the film, the disciple John leads his father Zebedee in a prayer of salvation, the
Wow.
salvation poem.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting to be a part of this and know that. As well, we're going to be giving it to these ministries, and we're certain that they will then be able to bring it to, if the Lord's willing, if He tarries, we'll be able to probably play it to over 1 billion people, and that's
A
what a powerful
billion
tool.
people. A
Over 1
billion.
billion people, yeah.
Yeah. That's
So,
unreal.
so the song that we wrote, the Salvation Poem, if you go on YouTube and type in the Salvation Poem, literally has been heard by over 1 billion already. My wife, real quick, my wife locked the keys in our car when we were out of town. We were in another city, actually in another state. So I called OnStar up and I said, hey, can you unlock my vehicle, please? And she asked me a few questions, and she said, this could take a couple minutes to unlock now. She says, is there anything else I can help you with? I said, yeah, where are you? She says, I'm in the Philippines. I said, I thought so. I could tell by her accent. And I said, do you speak Tagalog? And she said, yeah, that's my first language. I said, well, my wife and I wrote the song, and we understand it's really popular in the Philippines. She says, oh, really? What's the name of it? I said, it's called The Salvation Poem. And there's this pause, and she goes, sing a little bit of it. And so I did. And she goes, my kids sing that to me every night before they go to bed. So
Oh,
her kids were
man.
singing a sinner's prayer every night before they go to bed. I mean, here's just a random woman. So,
On
and
OnStar.
we've had a number of stories like that from around the world, Africa, China, India, where these kids know this. And, it's just like Mary had a little,
Lamb.
you know that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
could pay you $1 million if you could forget it, and you wouldn't be able to forget it.
You can't.
So so our goal is to teach the world this sinner's prayer. And obviously, if over 1 billion people have heard it, we've got a quite a few people that know it already. But the reality is to keep teaching this so that people would know how to start their walk with Christ. Because, you're not married until you say, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not a Christian until you receive Christ.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works. And so this sinner's prayer is just a simple prayer that starts out. The salvation poem is to give you an invitation to accept Christ. So the prayer is, Jesus, you died upon a cross and rose again to save the lost. Forgive me now of all my sin. Come be my Savior, Lord, and friend. Change my life and make it new, and help me, Lord, to live for you.
Wow.
So my wife and I, we wrote that, and it's been used unbelievably all over the world now. And you know what? We get reports back from people telling me, hey, my kid just led the neighbor kid to Christ. He asked him, do you know Jesus? Would you like to accept him as your Savior? Yes. Well, say this prayer, And so not only, can you imagine if Mary Had a Little Lamb was a sinner's prayer?
All the kids that would know it. Yeah.
All the kids would know it. And so that's kind of our goal. I believe this is probably my biggest life's work right now.
Yeah.
Is to teach the world this sinner's prayer. Because in the early 2000s, I just said, God, I make bows and guitars. Give me an idea to change the world. So I forgot to tell you that. Give me an idea to change the world. And I heard him say, okay, I want you to write a sinner's prayer, put to a poem, put to music, and I want you to teach the world. So that's what we're doing.
Man, unreal. And now it's going into a film that can go around the globe.
Yeah.
Just multiplying, and God can use things in miraculous ways. Matt, I do know you're out of time. I want to be respectful of your time. It was a absolute pleasure to get the chance to talk to you today. It's an honor. You've been a mentor of mine for a long time without me knowing you personally. And I appreciate you being here and appreciate your wisdom.
All right. God bless, man. Thank you for having me on. Again, we got one life. Let's give it all.
Let's give it all. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. God bless.
God bless. What a phenomenal conversation with Matt. Wow, that was a profound conversation. If you think about everything that Matt has done, everything he continues to do, he is literally serving God every day. And you can see the multiplication it has created. 1 billion people hearing that song. Now that's going to a film. His brand, his team, his company, he's really done some phenomenal things by making an impact for God with his limited time here on earth. Remember, we're looking for those golden nuggets. The big one that stood out to me was Matt talked about just thinking about spending that time in hell and then also spending that time in heaven and betting on that decision, thinking about the smells, the feels, the experience of spending 5 minutes in hell versus the smells, the feels, the experience of heaven, and thinking about where you are at and how important that decision is, and making sure that we're not going to get that wrong. And then, just continuing to ask God what he wants us to do every day and settling into that sonship and just doing what he wants us to do. Love you guys. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.